And I say, have that conversation, right? When do you get an opportunity? If you have, because, I know what my husband and I discussed, what we want for our children, and not our funerals. We didn't discuss our funerals. Like, we were living life, but we did discuss a lot about what we want for our kids. And so I just have to put things in place just in case I have what I'm calling a premature death as well, right? And so I get to meet with an attorney, get my estate planning done, choose someone that will help ensure that my vision lives on. Yeah. You get to do that. You get to talk about it. So you are literally directing from the grave. I mean, come on. Why not?
That'd be great.
Your grandma had it down. She had, let me go to my closet, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And to be honest, if she had more resources, she would still be directing things from the grave. And so for me, I know what I want for my kids. I have it down. Listen, I have it down. I just reached out to someone to be the executor of my estate because, and so I'm just saying this is an opportunity. And yes, we tell you that, you have to have enough for burial and all of that. But what if you have enough to set your family up for great success financially? What if you have enough for when your kids hit the age in their 20s, they get to go purchase real estate? What if you have enough where you can hand off the business to the grandchildren? What if you have enough where you get to gift something financially to your great grandchildren? What if you have enough, to take the financial hardship off your family? Just what if, and what if there's a small price that we have to pay for that? I've learned my lesson the hard way. My husband, man, was a heck of a man, smartest man I know, right? I mean, he chemistry major, just brilliant. I just didn't know. But then people, one of my besties, my big sister, my mentor, Kristen, she's like, if God were to come to you and say, would you do it again? Would you? Yeah, I would take him for 20 years if I knew that I had to. But you know what, man, there's so many things I would have in place, so many additional conversations, so much more planning, so if you have that opportunity, then take advantage of it. Yeah. It's a good thing to discuss. Well, okay, the kid's going to college. Okay, what does retirement look like? We always say, there's so much. Girl, I can just go in on this because I'm still hurting. That's
the truth. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you dealt with hardship after, you guys got married and, whatever you dealt with, I'm dealing with that hardship now because what I thought was a good savings after funeral expenses, traveling, dealing with not thinking, bleeding, just, feeling paralyzed, not moving, you'll go through your savings like that.
Yeah.
And then, right. And so, it's just a lot. It's a lot. And you can avoid that part of it. The grieving is still going to be there, right? That process you're going to recycle the phases of that. But if you can take the financial side a part away, the hardship away, I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, it's beneficial. And then also, speaking of covering your children, I don't think, one thing I do know, 0 is definitely not enough. So you got to have something.
Yes.
You got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing of covering your children, the moment that, you're planning, because we plan everything else. Oh, this is my birth plan. This is all of this stuff, which I learned when I became pregnant after that or whatever. But my firstborn passed away at birth. Okay. So the truth for me was at that time, I was part-time, had just turned full-time after the fact employee at an electronic company that shall remain nameless. And they were not paying me any maternity leave or anything like that. I didn't think about having the life insurance in place because why? It's a baby. Like, why would I need life insurance? But the gotcha and the gut-wrenching part of that was the hospital considered me low income, which I was, because I was only making, I was making like $9 an hour at that place or whatever. And so they asked me about funeral services. And I'm like, what? It was like, well, how do you want to proceed or whatever? If you cannot afford it, then we have a connection with a funeral home that will do cremation for you. So I didn't have a proper burial or a proper goodbye to say to my firstborn because I wasn't prepared. Like I didn't think about that. I didn't consider that. And as nice as the people were in the hospital, there was still protocol that they had to go with. So they gave me a day to process, and then they were like, here are your options. And the options that I was looking at was like, I don't have the money for that. I'm still trying to figure out other things or whatever. And I had to give my rights over to the hospital in order for my son to be cremated. So it's important to cover your little ones. Like the moment that you find out, of course, for me, I'm like, the moment I found out, I was like, okay, so there's a policy. Right. Gonna put that on there.
Yes.
But, just because you never know.
Very responsible. And you're like on it. You are on your stuff. Yes. Yeah. I love that. That. Man, that's so sad. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know that even occurred, and I've just been blessed with an opportunity to pour into the prenatal, this organization that really works with moms, because sometimes, moms are forgotten, right? It turns into being all about the baby. And just putting, I just get to coach them in terms of planning financially, and of course getting those things in place like protection and everything, but just budgeting and learning how to grow and multiply. And so because I had to come back. It was, it's rough, and now I'm still kind of dealing with stuff, stuff that will come up and all of that. So but in order to deal, you have to have that some sort of financial freedom and the ability to deal, and keep the kids in a good space and all of that, because you don't know how they're grieving and everything. So I tell you, I cannot recommend sitting down with someone sooner than later. And the people that gets me is, I would even ask, because, no one's a stranger to me. And so I'll say, hey, just, do you have coverage and things like that? Or, is your family protected? It's like, yeah. But then they'll come back and say, okay, no, guys, it's not something that you have to be ashamed of if you don't have it in place, because we don't know what we don't know, right? But after you watch this and listen to this, if you need help finding the best route to take, like, just reach out. And that's it. I've already dealt with the, the embarrassment and whatever else, the shame. Like I felt terrible, and I still have those days like, oh my God, like what is going on? I still have those days. I do. Because I also get to see folks that have protected their families through my services and my team services. And it's like, gosh, I just wish I did, I'm still like, but it's after the fact. And now it's time to rebuild and all of that. But my number one thing, I sat down with a financial advisor immediately and got all of our policies put in place. And I have a mixture of permanent and term. And then once I became financially stable again, I was able to, switch some things over and move things around. But my goal was to get something immediately. Like, I just want to make sure that I'm covered with them, as much as possible.
Yeah. So here's another thing too. So here's my truth. My truth is I am weird when it comes to death, because I don't know what to say. I don't know how to feel. I don't know if you want to hug or not. So I just if someone tells me a family member has passed or whatever, I'm just like, I'm going to give you your space. If you need me, call me. Like, I'm not the one to keep, checking in, which some people need the constant check-in, need the constant hugs and stuff like that. But even when I lost my son, like, I was weird with me because I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know. My whole thing was, okay, yes, I lost a baby. Yes, this was my firstborn. Yes, I am grieving. Yes, it was terrible. But I need to go back to work because there is nothing like experiencing debt at that level and then thinking about financially, how the heck am I going to survive after this? Because my manager, after I lost my baby, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a couple of days off and then I'm coming to work. And my manager was like, no, you're not coming to work. Like, you're not mentally ready to be
stable. Yeah.
And I was like, my bills don't care whether I'm mentally stable or not. They still are going to come. And so I had a support system that helped me or whatever get through financially. But my manager was like, I don't care how you feel about it. Like, I can't let you come back to work. But it's so hard to focus. You don't grieve.
Yeah.
You don't. No. I don't think I was able to breathe until months after, when I was like,
yes.
Everything's in place now.
Once everything settles.
Once everything settles, and I sat in the middle of my bed and I thought about it, and it was like,
my goodness,
an avalanche of emotions that just, knocked the wind out of me or whatever. It was absolutely terrible. So and I know that we probably keep saying the same thing, over and over, but it's so important because you don't want to grieve, and you don't want to put grief on the shelf and try to hustle to get money.
Right.
Like, you do not, that's not something that I will put on my worst enemy. Is an absolutely horrible feeling. And so our counterparts are mastering this thing by grandpa getting a $350,000 policy, and we're paying $50,000 to bury him, and we can disperse this money because now so-and-so can start a business, or you can pay off your tuition, or you don't have student loans, or you and it's not saying come up off of somebody passing away. It's just making sure that your legacy continues after you are gone home to wherever you believe. So
and that's the thing too. We, and I think the thing that our community, there's a trust, an issue with trust there, because if you look at it, people will say, oh, you come up, I've talked to folks and they're like, no, I'm not letting someone come up on my death and this and that. And it's like, man, we can't think that way, but, and to be fair, our community, there was a law years ago where we could only, the max that we could get was 500,000.
Yes.
So whenever there's a law, that there's something to it. So now that there is no law, we need to get as much as possible. But you took me there just saying, like, finally you were able to sit in the middle of your bed and all of the emotions, but you have to fight at the beginning just to survive. I mean, because, you suffered that great loss, but to everyone else, it's 3 weeks later, they go on about their lives. And you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to make these ends meet, financially, and so if you're worried about that, you can't properly grieve, it's difficult. So I remember just saying, okay, because I had to pull my kids out of the only school they'd known. It was a Christian private school. And it was just like, okay, this is the best decision. I think this is the best decision because I was literally going from 5 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night. And when I wasn't working on something, I was worrying about something, right? And so I just didn't get any rest. I didn't rest at all, right? And so that's what I'm saying you would help alleviate. It's not, this isn't a come up where, whatever. But if you have things in place the proper way, you can actually help disperse that, like I said, even after you're gone.